Hi there, Rebecca here, your Vibe Mentor, bringing you another video on how to raise your vibrations so you can live your best life. Wanted to talk to you today about complex trauma and shame. And it's very interesting how they go hand in hand. If you've experienced any kind of complex trauma in your life, you will have an element of shame operating sort of under the surface. It is very subtle and it is very pervasive. It's incredible how this theme of unworthiness, it runs its thread through every aspect of our life. It when you really get into the list, by the time you're done watching this video, your mind will be blown. If you have any element of complex trauma and or worthiness, fear of being seen, fear of judgment, rejection, this video is most definitely for you. You will be shocked at how it runs your life until, of course, we create awareness. So that's what we want to talk about today. So, first of all, what is complex trauma? Complex trauma is different than just your traditional trauma. Trauma historically has been one-off, very extreme traumatic situations, things like car accidents, the loss of a loved one, a mugging, something of that nature. Complex trauma is more of a long-term, sustained, high level of stress and unsafety. So this, of course, can come from things like physical abuse in the home or substance abuse, but it can also come through very subtle feelings of neglect, feelings of abandonment, feelings of not having your needs met. And so the key here is feelings. It is the interpretation of the child. It is not necessarily something that might appear to be traumatic or abusive on the outside to the external world. In fact, I would say that socially we have been programmed to accept some of these things that make us feel that our needs are not being met. We've been taught that our needs are not valid and that we should just suck it up. And so when going through this research and studying complex trauma in general, mental health, we have yet to really fully grasp the depth and the expansiveness of this issue. When we go through sort of the symptoms, sort of the checklist of do I or don't I have these behaviors or have this influence in my life, you realize that a vast majority of the world's population likely is dealing with complex trauma because of the societal acceptance around denying needs. It's become pervasive, and it's something that, especially as light workers or people who have any type of fear of being seen, you'll see that a lot of our fear of rejection, fear of being seen, fear of criticism is likely connected to these experiences in childhood. Generally, they can happen they most often happen in childhood, but they can also happen in your adult life. Whereas if you get in any type of toxic relationship or you have any type of long-term, sustained, stressful situation where you feel unsafe or that your needs are not being met, likely you will be dealing with some form of the impact of complex trauma. So typically, the message is received, the feeling is felt as a child or at whatever point in your life that you experience this, that you are somehow broken, not enough, unworthy, unlovable, there's something wrong with you because the primary caregivers in your life and or the person who should be giving you respect in the workplace or love in a relationship is causing this lack of needs being met. Oftentimes, it's usually typically someone who has some type of power or control over you. And in a relationship, that can be a spouse who has positioned themselves in that way. So it's really important to remember that it doesn't necessarily have to be an unhealthy home. an appearance of or look like your traditional traumatic home environment, that even some healthy homes can inadvertently create a feeling of unsafety for a child. For example, if two parents are sort of externally motivated, they're very gregarious, very social, very loud, very boisterous, just, very a big presence, I guess you will say. You have two parents like that, and then you have one sensitive child who prefers alone time, who prefers quietness, who prefers just a calmer environment. And somehow the parents, just by being who they are, cause the child to feel that because they are not the same, that there's something wrong with them. And so a lot of times people will say, I don't have trauma. I didn't have a negative experience in my childhood. My parents were very loving. And yet, when we really start to be honest with ourselves and dig deep and try to understand why we have a sense of unworthiness, or why we feel broken, or why we feel guilt and shame, it will come out that it was very inadvertent, that the parents did everything they possibly could. And yet, again, the perception, the feeling of the child interpreted something different. And so it's really not about blame. Even if the parents are your parents are very bad and they did a terrible job of raising you, likely their mother or father did the same thing, and their mother or father did the same thing, and it just goes back generation to generation to generation. They're doing the best they can with the tools they had, and it's not about blame. It's really not about fault finding, because to get to the core of the issue, to the root of the weed, to pull the weed, we just need understanding. It's not about blaming. So maybe your parents were workaholics, and just the sheer fact that they didn't have time to sit down with you and spend time with you, that's enough for you to feel abandoned and rejected. So ideally, a parent should be sitting down with you, making eye contact with you, mirroring to you your goodness, that you are awesome, you're fun to be around, you're funny to play with, you're interesting to listen to, right? They're reflecting to you your value and your worth. Your sense of worth is derived directly from the amount of attention and the direct relationship, the mirroring effect that you and your parent have when you engage, when they're present with you. Not on their phone, not talking to a friend, not physically in the room, but engaged attention and perception, right? So when we don't have that, whether it's conscious or subconscious, most often subconscious, we receive the message, I'm unlovable, I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. I don't deserve their love. I don't deserve their attention because they're not giving it to me. There must be something wrong with me. Unlovable and broken are probably the two biggest themes that come out of that. And then the sense is that because my parents don't love me, these people are supposed to be the number one most loving people in the world. So if they don't love me, there's something wrong with me. So if there's something wrong with me, I don't want anybody else to see the real me. I don't want to be seen because it's unsafe, and I will be rejected and I will be hurt more. And so in this avoidance of pain, we feel that we are the source of the problem. This is how the conscious and subconscious brain work. They're trying to keep us safe. And so in understanding the feedback of these mirrors, essentially, we've determined that we are the problem, and so we have to fix ourselves. And so we have to wear a mask. We have to hide behind the perceived persona that we should have, right? We're shooting all over ourselves again. And so we feel we've identified, if our parents are gregarious and they're loud, then that's who I'm supposed to be. And oftentimes people will become chameleons, that they understand that who they need to be changes based on who they're with. And so if you find that you can very easily shift from one personality to another, or you can very easily people please, that you know who you're with and what they're going to want. This was a big one for me. I actually thought this was a big gift. I was like, wow, I can read the room and I can figure out what I'm supposed to do. And it becomes a mask that we wear accidentally, that we hide our authentic self out of fear that we are going to be rejected and be in pain again. And yet, this is the crazy thing, is we desperately, desperately want love and respect. We want to be seen for who we are. We want to be embraced. We want to be respected. And yet there's this massive amount of fear of rejection. And so we're completely incapable of meeting that need for love and respect. And so what we do to get the love and respect is we develop very superficial relationships. Social media is an excellent platform for this, where we can communicate without the risk of really truly being vulnerable. We get in very superficial relationships. We oftentimes we reject ourselves so that we can get ahead of anybody else rejecting us. That if I reject me and I identify all my problems and I'm constantly criticizing myself and I'm constantly trying to get better I'm working on self-improvement all the time, it's kind of like a sense of control, right? Where if I can control the abandonment, if I can control the rejection by doing it to myself, then I'll make sure they don't do it to me. And if we are in a relationship and we dare get vulnerable and we dare start to show who we are and we see that it's not going well and it's heading down that path of probably not going to end well for me, we will reject them, or we will cause them, we will have self-sabotaging behavior so that they reject us, as if it's a sense of I've still done it to myself. I still knew this was coming, so it's a little bit safer, right? And so nobody likes the word shame. And there's something about it when you say, I feel shame, it automatically, it's like I'm admitting to you that I'm bad and broken. I'm admitting to you that you should reject. I'm admitting that I'm unlovable. And so the brain won't allow you to say, I have shame. You'll watch this, and I'd be surprised if you even got to this point where you're going, it's not me, I don't have shame, right? Where the brain is trying to keep you safe. It won't let you see what's going to hurt you. And that's kind of where the ego comes in, is like it's trying to get the validation. It's trying to prove that you're worthy and that you have value. Constantly, insatiable hunger for respect and proof that you're worthy. And yet it won't let you see why you don't feel it. And it keeps us stuck. It's unbelievable how we live in this conundrum of needing love and respect and validation, and yet putting walls around ourselves, putting on a mask, pretending we're something we're not, in a desperate attempt to try to fix this unfixable problem. We cannot possibly fix it from this place of shame. And so when we're learning to hide our vulnerabilities, we hide behind this mask, we then forget who we are. We forget or even lose touch with or never even learn who we truly are. And what's really interesting is I love the analogy of the hall of mirrors, that everybody in your life, every person that you interact with is a mirror for you. And it's kind of like being in the hall of mirrors. You don't know which mirror is reflecting something positive to you. And if you grew up in complex trauma, you had needs that were not met as a child, your mirror was distorted. You had a mirror telling you that you were 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall, when in reality, an accurate mirror would have showed you you were 6 feet tall and skinny. And so you've gone through life looking through this distorted mirror. And so then anytime you meet an accurate mirror, somebody comes to you and says, you're amazing, you're awesome, I love you, you're funny, you're fun to be around, great energy, whatever the positive comment is, your immediate response is, what do they want from me? Or, this is weird. They don't really know who I am, right? If you really knew who I was, you wouldn't say that, right? And we discount all of the positive feedback that comes into our life because 0 to 7 or whatever significant amount of time frame you had in your life caused you to see yourself through a distorted hall of mirrors. And so this is where the work that I'm really getting even more deeply into psychology than I've ever been, which I never thought possible. I'm actually even considering a doctorate right now. That this is so incredibly impactful because everything that drives the work I do is your value. Your potential, your value is my why. And so if you look at my name, Vibe Mentor, Vibe is actually an acronym. It stands for Value and Intention-Based Education. Why? Because even 7 years ago, when I was looking at what is the world's biggest problem, People don't feel valued. People don't feel valuable. We all have an innate knowing. We have a soul sickness from not recognizing our value, not knowing our worth. And this, the trauma, the complex trauma work, the shame work, it's this body of knowledge that just explodes the whole problem and says, there's the freaking answer to all of it. To depression, to anxiety, to the dark night of the soul, to struggling with relationships, to struggling in work. We'll get into the list and you'll start to see how this is so pervasive in your life. And it all boils down to the fact that you are massively valuable. You are a divine spark of the God source, creator, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And there's a knowing in you that you are valuable. And so this constant confusion of like, the world is reflecting to me that I'm not valuable. It's telling me that I'm an accident. It's telling me that I'm a problem. It's telling me that I'm a parasite. It's telling me I'm an annoyance. And you know, it's not true. There's a knowing that we can't quite get in touch with. It's deep in our heart, deep in our soul, tucked away, hidden to keep it safe because the world doesn't feel safe. So we create these walls. We don't let people in. We don't believe the real mirrors. We have this constant need to adapt to the perceptions of others and avoid rejection through self-sacrifice, self-abandonment, through just not allowing people to see the real me, right? And so we really have to be honest with ourselves because this likely is your biggest block. This is likely your biggest barrier to achieving your highest potential, to living your best life, to raising your vibration, to living your purpose. All of these things are prevented by unworthiness. And if you can deal with the term shame, that's ultimately what it boils down to. And sometimes we feel shame about the way we look, we feel shame about our culture, we feel shame about our personality, we feel shame about things that we can't fix, right? Maybe the message was verbally, like it was for me, you're a sinner, you're in shame, you're going to hell, you should repent, right? Berating every day about how bad I was. Or it could be very, very subtle. Your parents just worked too much and they didn't sit down and pay attention to you. It could be where you're from. It could be your religious beliefs. It could be mistakes you made in the past. It could be toxic narcissistic relationships who constantly berate you and tell you how bad you are. It comes to a point where your nervous system just is so hyper vigilant because you're never safe. It's never good enough. You're always walking on eggshells. And we don't realize the programming that has happened through that constant repetition and the track in our brain, the thoughts that we're thinking, what we're saying to ourselves, right? There's an excellent book out there, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. We don't catch that. We're not taught that we need to manage our thoughts. We're not taught that our thoughts are connected to the chemistry in our body, that it creates illness. And then from there, as our brain creates negative chemistry in our body, we feel negative emotion and we take negative action. And then we're drawing to us through those negative responses. That is our vibration, right? We're at this frequency. All of it is energy. Okay, we're getting too deep into that. So anyways, we're not taught to start to question these things that are sending negative messages to us. And so we put barriers around ourselves, we put masks on, we hide, we're afraid to be who we are, right? And so if you really want to know, do I have shame? How does this really impact me? This is a crazy list, so bear with me. Be honest with yourself. Allow yourself to really hear this. Catch the conscious mind who's going to try to tell you no. Conscious mind's going to say, that's not me. I don't struggle with shame. I don't have low self-esteem. My life is fine. Everything's under control. I'm good. And that's generally how I thought when I started digging into it too. But man, you'd be surprised how many things there are that have kind of been tucked away or hidden or glossed over. And it's running your life. So here we go. All right. Number one, self-talk. That's what we've talked about. Negative self-talk. Things like, what's wrong with me? Why did you do that? You're such an idiot, right? Anytime you're beating up on yourself. I'm bad. I'm weak. I'm lovable, unlovable, powerless, worthless. You're constantly belittling or discounting and criticizing yourself or others. And the other thing that you'll notice as we go through the list is there's a lot of extremes, right? You're either all this or all that. You do it to everybody else or you do it to yourself, right? We can be rigidly defensive or dogmatic, being very rigid, being inflexible, right? Just notice how the ego comes out in all of this. The ego is constantly trying to feel better, right? Covering up the feelings of not enoughness, right? The ego's always trying to validate you and prove that you're worthy. So here's the thing, as we go through this, you are worthy and you are valuable. And so it kind of helps the brain to chill out a little bit because it's denying all these things to try to keep you safe, to prevent you from feeling the pain because it hurts, right? It hurts to see the things that cause us shame. It hurts to see the things that make us feel unworthy. But at the same time, we can ease that coping mechanism by saying, brain, I am worthy. I am a spark of the divine. I do have gifts and talents. I am needed by the world. I do have a purpose. I just haven't found it yet. And if we continue to put this buffer in between me and that, we're never going to find it. So we got to let the brain relax and say, okay, to get to where we want to go, we got to move through this. And that's the other key, is it will hurt for a minute. It'll hurt for a day, but you will move through it finally instead of hiding from it and never getting to the other side of this tiny little thing that ends up being the biggest block of your life, right? Okay, so addictions, including food, right? Addictions to fat, to sugar, to work, shopping, gambling, pornography, working out, sex, right? Codependency or emotional states even, like extreme excitement or even bouncing from extreme excitement to extreme sadness, right? The extremes again. Rage, spiritual ecstasy even, right? Compulsion to rescue others, right? Avoiding eye contact, social isolation or compulsion to socialize, right? And there's another one of the extremes. Having no friends or being drawn to wounded and needy people, right? A general suspicion or mistrust of others. Excessive sensitivity and defensiveness or pervasive criticism and rejection, right? Excessive concern or personal or social blame or finding fault. So either finding fault with yourself or finding fault with others, right? Obsession about my rights. Either I deserve or I don't deserve. Equality or fairness. That was another one for me, like very, very vigilant about fairness. Not necessarily for me, but for my kids. But anyhow, focusing on past mistakes, right? Anytime we constantly justify why we do or don't deserve something because this decision I made in the past, or this mistake I made, right? Habitually putting your own needs or welfare last, and yet at the same time, being so self-focused that we're not able to be of service, and or again, another extreme, being too of service and not being able to take care of our needs, right? A fear of failing, losing, or mistakes. It's like debilitating where it stops you from trying new things. Never admitting mistakes or compulsively apologizing, right? There's the extremes again. Unflattering clothing, personal hygiene, where we don't take care of ourselves. Again, it's a form of hiding and not wanting to be seen. Excessive concern with personal, professional, social, vehicle, or dwelling appearances, right? So what are they going to think of me? Compulsive perfectionism. Rarely buying nice things or special things for yourself. Shading the truth or lying by omission to avoid ridicule, criticism, or disapproval. Excessive fear. Self-neglect, avoiding self-assessments and psychological wounds or true personal recovery, right? Just that, again, I don't want to see the thing that I think that makes me feel bad and awful. I don't want to work through it. It's better if I just ignore it. And yet it's the opposite. Unhealthy diets, extreme restriction. Joking about self-deprecation. I've many people who joke about how they hurt themselves. Deflecting compliments and being hard on yourself. giving time and energy to others and getting little or nothing in return. Tolerating relationships, situations, or environments that create shame. Staying in those toxic relationships. Being unable to accept things on this list. Taking risks and results in harm or self-humiliation. Rarely questioning or demanding one's needs. Justifying core beliefs like I don't deserve or expect love, success, security, comfort, friends, or even nice things. Being timid, passive, quiet, or aggressive, self-centered, or a bully. Not setting or enforcing boundaries, right? Not setting boundaries with others, not setting boundaries with yourself, not enforcing them with others, not maintaining them for yourself. Self-sabotage, right? All of the addictions. So many things can fall into that bucket. Choosing the saint, victim, or martyr role, the victim triangle, right? This is like the short list, right? Like it goes on and on and on. My point is I just want you to start to see how this impacts your life and how at the core of it, the root cause, and if you watch any of my videos, you know I am all about the solution. How do we fix this? So the solution is, one, recognizing the false mirror, the thoughts, the self-deprecating thoughts that will come from that false mirror, and remembering that our perception is inaccurate. Our perception of ourselves, our perception of rejection, our perception of criticism, and recognizing that we are valuable. Knowing that inherently, because you breathe, you are valuable. You look at babies, they're expensive, they're challenging, they take all your time, they're difficult, they're often impossible to please, right? But we collectively as a society, we value a baby who seemingly doesn't have any benefit, right? There is inherent value in every single person simply because you breathe. And I'll say it again. You are a spark of the divine. You are not mated. You are not an accident. You are made on purpose. You are made with a purpose. You are made with intention. There's a 1 in 4 billion chance that the sperm met the egg and that you survived and that you are here in your current form. It's statistically impossible to be an accident. So you have value, and everything that I do, you are my why, your potential, your value is my why. And that's my whole life is built around helping you see your value, helping you see your purpose, helping you step into it, fully own yourself, love yourself, because that self-love and that awareness of your value is going to allow your whole life to blossom into a new way. It's the one thing that stands between you and where you are and where you want to go. So I will be talking a fair amount more about this. It is way too important to gloss over or to just address in one video. So lots more to come. I hope you found this helpful. Please, in the comments, as an exchange of this free gift I give to you, please give me a like, a share, or a comment. It helps my channel. It helps me be able to continue to do this. And I would appreciate the energetic exchange that is required for me to continue to give you free value, is to make sure that I am receiving in return. I am being asked to step into this work just as much as you are. So we're all in this together. So anyhow, there are more links below if you want to connect, if you need any further support in working through complex trauma or shame. I would love, love, love to help you. And there's links below. So I will see you on the next video. Namaste, my friends.